The Senior Reset podcast delivers education and resources to help seniors and their families set themselves up for success. Each week, we dive deep with medical professionals and industry leaders to bring you answers to the questions that matter most. From the latest medical advice to financial strategies to staying ahead of scams, we'll build the toolkit you need to thrive. Here's your host, Joel Stewart.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Senior Reset podcast. We are talking resources, education, solutions, entertainment, and training for the senior community and their families. I am very happy to have Michelle Mince on with us today. She's a speech language therapist. She's worked in senior cognition for nearly 30 years. She's worked in hospitals, rehabs, and now in home health. So she is going to talk with us today about keeping our memory sharp, which is something that even I need help with. and I still not quite in my senior years. So, hey, Michelle, how you doing?
Hey, I am so happy to be here and share my wonderful information with all of everybody.
Yeah. Do you mind us giving us a little overview of kind of like, what you've been doing, especially in like the realm of taking care of seniors and cognition and all of that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I'm Michelle Mince. I have been a speech and language pathologist for over 25 years. I specialize in working with the very young from 0 to 5 and the senior population, basically like 70 and above. I like those different age groups. They bring me a lot of joy to work with. I find a lot of similarities as well as a lot of differences between the two age groups. So I've worked in all over. I'm in California, but I've worked in hospitals and rehabs and schools and outpatient facilities and home health, where people have had strokes or some sort of head injury and they're back home and they still need some help. A lot of speech, a lot of swallow therapy, and a lot of cognition and memory, which is what we're here to talk about today. One of my passions to talk about. So I'm very happy to let you all know what I can share with you.
Yeah, I think we might have you on again in the future, maybe to talk about the speech. So with memory care, can you just go into what it is and what kind of happens with our memory as we age?
I sure would. So from a speech and language pathologist point of view, I like to think of our memory in our brain as like a file cabinet, which some people may have heard before or not. So as a file cabinet, as we learn things, as we grow and as we age, we kind of stick it in and we find where in which file cabinet, we have many file cabinets, which file cabinet to stick it in so that we can find it later. And we do that as we grow. And then what happens as we age is that we start to lose track of which file cabinet it might be in or which file in that file cabinet. And so it starts to get lost. And that's the normal aging process. I'm in my 50s and unfortunately I'm having some difficulties too that I'm recognizing, being in the profession that I am. I'm very on top of it. So it's very important to me actually to do memory care for myself so that I can stay sharp. And so I'm I'm practicing what I preach, so to speak. So we lose track of those file cabinets and we lose track more and more often as we age. And that's where it starts to become difficult or a problem, as we say. So where is that word? Where is that item? And I can't quite find where that is in my brain to be able to remember it.
It happens like all the time. That's what's that word? Or what do I do with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. That feeling like it's on the tip of my tongue. Okay, that word that's on the tip of your tongue. That is a common thing that happens to everybody at every age. The challenge becomes, and I'm jumping right in, is that as we get older, it happens more often and it starts to impede our ability to communicate our wants and our needs. And that's where an issue becomes more than just like, oh, I just can't remember it right now. And it's, it just is what it is. But yeah.
So, I guess that follows the next question.
Jumped ahead.
It sounds like forgetting the words is kind of natural. But when does memory loss or losing track of these file cabinets, when does it start becoming problematic and somebody needs to start taking an active role in their memory and trying to keep it sharp?
So as I said, I'm and honestly at 52, I am starting to notice some things. I don't know why, but I am. And so it's important when you start noticing that things are different, that you do something about it. So it doesn't really matter what age that is. If that is starting to happen, you need to be working on getting your memory sharp and an active role in doing that, not just like when things happen, I'm going to try and remember it. So, and the idea of losing words, because I'm a speech therapist, most of what I'm about is about communication. So when I talk about memory, it could be that you forgot where you put your keys, or you don't remember what you had for lunch yesterday, or you can't remember if you told this person something. Those are all things, but my main focus is that idea of communication and how memory affects our ability to communicate to one another. And so that's where I come in often, mostly because people have had strokes, because that's why I'm there. But I can come in even without that. And if somebody is having difficulty relaying information on a more consistent basis, that they're getting frustrated because they can't communicate or they can't remember, and that frustration is enough where it's bothersome to them or their loved ones or caregivers, because sometimes we don't recognize it in ourselves, and that's what happens. And that's a dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that, with it's a medical diagnosis, which I don't do, but I help in with therapy. And so at that time, when you're saying, gosh, I just can't function really anymore, I can't function in my day to day, or I'm recognizing that my loved one is having trouble functioning, or really that communication breakdown is just so frustrating that we should be working on it and tending to it. There's no
Okay.
magic number, there's no magic age number. It's a lot of being aware, and just even listening to this podcast and listening to me is going to help people
Yeah.
be aware.
Well, that's our goal here, is to provide education that seniors need, and their families, for that matter, because a
Yeah.
lot of times seniors might not be tapping into information resources like this.
Yes.
Well, so it sounds like you've got a toolbox there. What is it that people can do to keep their memory sharp? What can we do? You say you're doing stuff every day, or you're working on yourself. What
I
can
am.
we be doing every day to keep our
God,
brains sharp?
I have so many things that are like coming into my head from my toolbox right now. Okay, so one of the things that is very common that people have difficulty with first is remembering names. So
Oh,
whether
I'm the worst. I am the worst.
whether
My
you
wife
already
gets me all the time.
whether you already start with a difficulty of remembering names as a young person, then it's not like you're going to gain that knowledge growing, right? So
Oh no, I'm doomed.
you're a lost cause. No. So this is what I've been doing, and this is what would be really great for you. And I'd love feedback from anybody, later on, if you've done this, is that when I go places, I've been in a hotel, I've been in restaurants, I've been to CVS, I've been to the grocery store. Whoever has a name tag and their name is on there, I use it. And guess what? It helps me connect to that person. So I go, thank you so much, Pam. And they're like, oh, how'd you know right there, and then as I'm engaging with them, or I was at a hotel, so I saw the person the next day and she didn't have her name tag on, but because I had said it a few times the day before, I now remember it. And now each time I see her, and it actually makes it very personal then. So saying people's names as you see them and then repeating them. Okay.
Now, will trying to do that with people at like restaurants, will that help you remember other people's names that you just kind of mention, like meet and then don't see for a while? Or is it just kind of like you have to do that with every person to remember their name?
The idea behind memory of really everything is the idea of repetition. Okay. So you would need to repeat Paul's name many times, but that doesn't mean that you're going to remember Susan.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's, and so that all of my strategies that I'm going to go into right now all really have to do with repetition. But perhaps if you said Paul's name 10 times in a row while you're trying, you know, not in a row, but like, hey, Paul, can you get me this? Oh, thanks, Paul. Oh, Paul, do you know where, and you did that, then maybe you'd only have to say Susan's name like 5 times, you know, and then it would click, you know, a little faster.
Right. So when I meet people, and so when I meet anybody, I should say like this is John, and be like, oh, hey, John.
Yeah.
You know, so what's John do? You know, should just find ways to say their name a bunch of times.
There you go. There you go. And you know, to do that right at the beginning, because I've found what I've done is I've introduced myself and I've heard their name, but I'm so onto what my agenda is or my question or what I want that I haven't really taken in their name. It's just what you do socially at the beginning of the conversation. But then I'm like, oh gosh, what did they say their name was?
That's probably half my issue. I'm very goal focused. So like even in conversations, like I'm always trying to get somewhere.
Right.
That's a great point, Michelle.
Well, thank you very much. Because then when you are goal focused and you want to get to where you're doing, you're not really listening and attending and taking in what the other person is saying. And sometimes we do that because we don't want to forget what we're going to say to the other person. Let's get back to memory.
Say their name 3 times, and I forget why we even started the conversation.
Right. Okay, how great is that? And that was like no pun intended or whatever. But and that is actually what my father says, is that he will interrupt what I'm saying or say something that's completely off topic. And I go, where did that come from? Or that was rude. I was talking. If I don't get it out now, he says, I will not remember it. And so I need to blurt it out right now while I'm thinking about it. It doesn't matter. That's my, like, and I'm thinking about it right now. That's his goal. So it doesn't matter what is happening around him, because otherwise he'll forget to tell me or something. And so that is something that's very common, and that's not socially appropriate then, because we're not talking about that. You interrupted me. If you're thinking about that, you're not listening to me. And so there's a whole breakdown in communication that's happening right there. I know I just got off on a whole tangent.
Oh, that's fine.
All right.
So repeating people's names, I like that. Let's what else you got in your toolbox?
Okay, so my toolbox is, so counting things. So let's say I look in my refrigerator and I go, okay, it looks like I need milk, eggs, and sour cream, because sour cream is my favorite. And I go, okay, it's only 3 things. I don't really need to write it down. Okay. But it's 3 things. I know there's 3: milk, eggs, and sour cream. So first of all, I'm counting them. I'm also repeating them: milk, eggs, and sour cream. Milk, eggs, and sour cream. There's 3 things. There's 3 things. Okay. So then I listen, and then I get a phone call in the car on the way to the grocery store, and I'm listening to music, and I take care of an email. And then I go into the grocery store and I go, okay, I'm here to get milk. And what else?
Gosh, you're giving me deja vu.
I know, right? I'm talking about what everybody goes through, and it doesn't really kind of matter what age, but it happens more as we age. So that is what happens, why it relates to seniors, right? Okay. So I'm at the grocery store, milk. I at least know I'm missing 2 things, because I know there's 3. And so if I can get, and that feels more settling to me than to go milk and I don't know what else. Could be 5 things, could be, I don't know. But at least there's, milk, eggs. So I'm just missing 1. I know it's 1. Maybe I'll spot it. How could I forget my sour cream? Okay. So, okay, 3. I know I've got them all. Now I know, am I missing 1? Was there another one? No. There were 3. I have 3. I'm done. So counting things, finding places where you're like needing to count how many things you need to remember. Not really past 5, I would say. Maybe, depending on your memory. We're supposed to be able to remember 7 things, like a phone number, and that is what I'm noticing too, is that I used to be able to remember all 7 numbers of phone number, no problem. Now I'm like 3 and chunking 3 and 4, which chunking is another tool. So I'm moving on from counting, if everybody's following me. That was another tool.
Following you.
Chunking, I know, but there are some seniors that might be hopefully listening that might need it a bit slower, and that is totally appropriate. So we need to make sure everybody's on the page with me. As a speech therapist, communication.
So we've got repeating, like repeating people's names, repeating stuff, and then we have counting.
Yep.
So you can combine that with names. I just met John, Julie, and Jim. That's 3 people that I just met. So, all right, so we got,
and they all start with J, which is
they all start with J.
So and then what I started mentioning is chunking. Okay, so we chunk groups of information, or like a phone number. Okay, natural chunking is the 3 numbers and then the 4 numbers. If you're chunking names, John, Julia, and oh gosh, I kind of paid attention, but I kind of didn't. But I know that there's 3 names, and I know the third one starts with J. Okay, so even though I don't remember what those names were because I wasn't really focusing, I know something that might remind me a little bit about them. Okay, so chunking, trying to chunk information, grouping things so that you remember milk, eggs, and sour cream, and John, Julie, and do you remember what you said?
Jim.
I was gonna say Jim too. Okay.
So you could chunk all 3 of those as like, these are all 3 dairy, right? Milk, eggs, and sour. Well, eggs sort of dairy, dairy adjacent.
Yeah, right. And dairy is my favorite, so that's, I guess, why I went there. I don't know. That's so yes. So I mean that's another memory strategy that you just mentioned without maybe even knowing it. Putting things in categories. Okay, so those were all dairy, and then the other 3 things we chunked were names. Now I'm gonna chunk some colors: red, blue, yellow. What'd I say?
Red, blue, yellow.
Okay, how are you gonna remember that?
I don't know. They're colors.
They're colors. I chunked them into how many?
There's 3.
I'm testing your memory right now. Do you see that? You have to remember.
They're all primary colors too. So
they're all primary colors. That will help you remember. Okay. And then what you didn't do was well, you did it once, but repeat it. If you repeated it, I usually say if you can repeat things 5 times in a row, you are going to be definitely more likely to remember it than if you just said it once. You know, is it more likely that you'd remember it if you said it 7 or 8 times? I don't know. There's probably research on that, and I don't know about that. So, but when I'm working with patients either on memory, or I also, as I mentioned, work with very, very young children, actually birth to 5, kids who are learning to speak or helping them learn how to talk. So if they're trying to pronounce words accurately, I will have them say cat, 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 cat 5 times in a row, because there's my dog. So that they can pronounce it better. So 5 times will help you remember things.
So I guess to go over what we've been over is there's inside the category of improving my memory, I need to repeat things over and over again. Oh no, there's let's see, repeating, counting, chunking, categorizing. So there we've covered 4 things. 1, 2, 3, 4. And repeating.
Those are right. And I talked about names, you know, which goes under
trying to put this into practice while we do it.
What's that?
So trying to put this into practice while we do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's right. By repeating the strategies, it's helping to remember. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've covered 4 strategies that are inside the category of memory care. We have repetition and counting.
Yep.
Which are chunked together as numerical.
Yep.
And you have categorizing and chunking, which is chunked as a group of I don't know, categorizing. That's and they're all into the category of memory care tips.
There you go. Bing bing.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have any other tips you wanted to share with us? Is there a 5th one that we want to talk about?
Let's see. You want another one? Let's see if I can remember another one. Well, the best thing for your memory is to write things down, is to use a tool. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my dog, which is so not right for a podcast, and I apologize. Is to write things down and not really rely on your memory, especially if it's something that's really important for you to remember. So I help seniors with memory strategies like this. But what I really help them with is to function in life at the ages of in our 80s, when we're talking about, are they going to remember the 5 things they need in their grocery store? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a system of writing notes, whether it be pen and paper, and some sort of system of that. So this is going to be your grocery list. This is going to be your list that you need when you talk to your doctors. This is going to be your list when you need to go to CVS, or if it is in a phone or a tablet or something like that. So that and that's what I do, is that I have a note section, and each note has its title. And so that each time I think, oh, I gotta remember to ask my doctor, my ophthalmologist about this, I go to my ophthalmology note, because it's a specific categorized note just for that doctor, so that when I go on that day, I can find that note. So that
I remember what I used to do in college and throughout my educational, experience. It's always been like my three ways to try to remember things was always see it, hear it, write it. And I'd never have to, like it used to be, I'd never have to go back to it. Nowadays, more and more, I have to write it down, or I still forget it, even if I do all 3 of those things. And there's a lot of like really great ways for us to write stuff down. I mean, there's lists on your phone. You can use your calendar, like you're meeting this person at this date.
Lots of apps, lots and lots of
Yeah.
apps. So the other thing you said, see it. What'd you write? Say it.
See it, hear it, write it. Yeah.
See it, hear it, write it. If I'm gonna say it.
Say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Say it.
Another 4th thing.
Say it many, many, many times. I'm so sorry about my dog. I don't even know what to tell you.
I can barely hear him. He's fine.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Say it, right? So guys, that's what I was saying. So when you repeat it, not just, it's one thing to repeat it silently in your head, but I'm actually say it out loud, because when you say it out loud yourself, you're hearing yourself. So there's a lot of different senses that are trying to help you remember it. So you can say it as you write it: milk, eggs, sour cream. So you're writing it, you're saying it, you're hearing it, you're thinking it, you're picturing it. Okay. That's another strategy right there, to make a picture in your head. I do that a lot. Try to make a picture in your head. So now I'm picturing carton of milk, the crate of eggs and the sour cream, and they're all in my shopping cart. I can see them there. Okay. I can see Newton. I can see, I can actually like see the whole thing, and so that is going to be more likely for me to be able to remember it, because I've made a picture in my mind too. So
now I imagine if you're purposefully doing all these things, that your brain will start to actually remember things a little better by automatically doing this grouping and stuff. Is that
it is it does that's why I said, if you repeat John's name 5 times or 10 times, then maybe you only have to do Susan's name 5 times. So for some are might go and try this and go, well, I still have to say Susan's name 10 times every time. Everybody's different, everybody's brain is different. Everybody's brain has formed for all their lives differently. Okay. To be honest with you, when I always ask, I need to know people's backgrounds when I work with them. So if I'm working with an 85-year-old who was an engineer, that is going to be very different than if I'm working with a 92-year-old who has worked stocking the grocery store for all his life. And what I'm simply saying is, no, I'm not judging either one. And I want to make that very clear, but my therapy and how I'm going to talk and engage with that person, and my expectations of maybe, what one can retain and what I'm going to use in therapy for them to remember is going to be different. I'm going to use grocery items for the guy in the grocery store. I'm going to use
Yeah.
engineering items, which I have to look up for
Dun,
the
dun,
engineering side,
dun.
which I get
I have
to
a
learn.
degree in engineering. I understand.
Yeah, which I get to learn more then, which is fabulous, So everybody's brains have been brought up differently too. So there's that. Somebody might have used their brains more for memory after all these years than somebody else. So just everybody take, what I'm saying with, there's a range.
Sure.
Yeah.
When should people look at getting some kind of specialized care or therapy, engage with somebody like yourself? When should somebody think about that or talk to their doctor about it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned that from the beginning, is that is when it seems to be impeding functional life. And so that can be look different for everybody. And so somebody might say, you know what, my dad's just breaking down just a little bit, but that is enough for him because he was a professor and a speaker. And now for him to have just a little loss of words is devastating. So I want to get help for him.
Yeah.
And I've got somebody else who goes, waiting. They don't talk that much. They're quiet. They watch TV and, until, so again, there's a range. So every family is different. So each family member, each person themselves, but again, themselves may not be able to recognize what's happening. And so our loved ones need to be our support. Is if what that's been your way of engaging and interacting with that person is changing so much that it is frustrating, it's impeding, it may not, the doctor may say this is not serious enough, and you go, it's important enough to me that I want to learn some tools that I want to know what to do. So I know that's a little wishy-washy in a way, but
Yeah.
but
No, I get it. I think what you're saying is once it starts interfering with your daily life,
yeah,
talk to your doctor about it. I mean,
yeah,
people might be scared to talk to their doctor about it, afraid that they might get some sort of scary diagnosis like dementia or
right,
Alzheimer's or something like that. But
right,
honestly, you might not be there and you still might benefit from some kind of therapy.
right.
And by putting it off, and if you did have something kind of more difficult going on, you'd want to catch it more early than later. So
I was going to say that
just
I was going to make sure to make that point, is that yes, you might go in and it may be nothing. And that's what's happened, with people, and they go, well, mild cognitive impairment. That's kind of, it's that early, not early stages of just getting older. It just being senioritis, if you will. Okay. So it's not a dementia, but you're not as sharp as you were. It's just, we age, that happens. So, but mild cognitive impairment, it's kind of like a general, so that might be where you fall, but that might be enough to bother you, where like, I used to be able to read and concentrate, and I loved reading, and now I can't read, and that's really bothersome to me. I'd like some tools to be able to do that. That might be enough for a person to just, get that. Or so yes, when it's interfering with your daily functions, or and that's touching on the scaredness, you might go and you might find out that there is something more than just a mild impairment, and that is scary. But the earlier the better, and that's where my company, Baby Blooming Moments, I work with children, and the earlier what's happening, get help. A lot of people can feel better with that. Some people don't want that, or and they just want to live and they just want to go. So but if you can know what resources and where you can get help, which we're going to talk about next a little bit, it's great for you to be open to go down that path.
Yeah, well, go ahead and launch into that. You know, what resources are available?
So definitely speech language pathologists. Um, it sounds like we work on speech and language, but guess what I do? Okay. I work on speech, I work on language, I work on swallowing, I work on voice. So Parkinson's patients often have difficulty with their voice and swallowing. I work on attention, cognition. So we talked about, so which includes memory, it includes judgment and problem solving. I work on reading. I work on writing. So there are many areas that a speech language pathologist can help with. Um, Occupational therapists, they often can help with mobility of hands. So if somebody's having difficulty grasping things. So that, I mean, I can get into a whole bunch of resources. I realize that I could talk about a bunch. OTPT, but I guess we're going to focus on like for memory resources. Otherwise I'll go all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You want to talk, if at 70, 75 and above, I'm feeling like everybody should have a neurologist in their back pocket. That's always good because you don't want to scramble to find one at the time you need one. It's very, very good to have a doctor. Those doctors, gerontologists, everybody, kind of like off topic a little bit, but I encompass and I take care of all my patients. This is an important one.
Yeah, but be in one's practice, because finding a new doctor can sometimes take months to get into them. But if you're already an existing client, you can usually get a faster appointment. Is that
Well,
kind of what
that's
you're
it.
saying?
But also is that if you go, oh my gosh, my family member just had a stroke, we're not even hooked to a neurologist, or we don't, haven't had a primary care doctor because we've been in between and we haven't found somebody. Now I need to scramble in the moment of this stroke and try and find somebody to help me. I want to have, okay, you've got some mild cognitive impairment, you've got this. Let's have a doctor who knows you, who's following you, so that if some sort of brain injury occurs, you now have somebody who has known you and followed you and can see what's going on, and you don't have to scramble. So that was a little bit of what I was talking about. Have some in your that you've established a relationship with, and you feel comfortable and can trust, rather than scrambling at the time of an emergency.
Right.
So other resources, there are there are lots of there are a few. So let me go back. So I think that stimulating one's brain by doing if I call them brain games, if you will, is important for everybody. Okay. So whether you like word searches or crossword puzzles or
Yeah, there's a lot of apps out there for that kind of stuff. I
so
didn't realize they actually did much. I thought it was just kind of like scammy advertising, but they actually are very helpful.
They're extremely helpful. So there's a lot of apps. That's where I was going to go. So if you want to go technology wise, there are tons of apps. There are tons of websites that that are great for memory. For what? For memory. And Luminosity is one. LUMINO, SITY, Luminosity, and Brain HQ. Both of them are .com. Are two in particular that I really like a lot. They may give you free trials, or you sign up for them and you get to pick all different kinds of activities that I like. I think somebody should at least 20 minutes, at least once or twice a day, sit down and do, either on technology, or some of the seniors that I work with, that's too challenging for them. So there are paper and pencil word search books and crossword puzzles and games and all sorts of brain things
Sudoku,
yeah, things like that I keep going like this, so you can still flip and you can do things like that.
Yeah.
But yes, there are apps. I want to plug something I've recently found, and I'm happy if anybody wants to hook up with me to be able to learn to hook up with this. It's called Talk Path Therapy. It's a wonderful program that helps with speech, language, cognition. If you hook up with a speech therapist, they can, such as me, I can assign you the right programs to do that are right for your level. So when you go on there, you just do the right things. You don't have to search for everything.
And it gives
Another,
you accountability, which is definitely help with,
well,
staying on
yes, and
track
then
with stuff.
it does connect with me so that I can see how you're doing, and we can see, and we get to see, and I get to bump you up in levels and really help follow you through. So that's great, but it's not something you need a speech therapist for. You can just check it out, and it's something that you can do on your own. Something else that relates just to seniors that I recently learned about, so I want to share, is called virtual connections. Anybody can join. It's for a lot of stroke and aphasia patients. So anybody can join. There are hundreds of different groups. It's all free. And you can go on, you can join if you like sewing. You can go on and you just are going to talk about sewing, and people are all over the world, and you're connecting with them on whatever level you are in your ability to communicate, remember things. I know we're talking about memory, but and so that is a fascinating, fabulous new new to me program that I just wanted to share with people, because you find your niche of what is you like talking about, and then you get practice talking. You get to see if you can remember the person from the next time,
Yeah.
Definitely can. There's all sorts of things on brain games and memory groups for that. So so those are different resources.
All right. Well, let's see how I can remember, Michelle.
Good.
We
That's
had two different categories of stuff. We had the first category was on different techniques for remembering things. We had repetition, we had counting, we had chunking, and we had categorizing.
Now, are you reading or are you remembering?
I am not reading.
Okay,
I'm
just want to
doing some
just want to
memory.
make sure.
So
Okay.
that was the four things that were in that category. And we have
Excellent.
four things in the second category, which was how we can actively try to remember things. And we had see it, hear it, write it, say it. We
Love
have
it.
four things in that category. And then we went into resources, and we had
I did not count.
I don't know, maybe three things.
I did not count.
In
Let's see what
we had therapy that you could go to with your doctor. We had brain games that you could engage with 20 minutes a day, twice a day maybe, and then you had communities that you could engage with to discuss and have accountability and try to remember what they're all saying.
I love it. Look
Yes.
at that. And you know what would be great for your memory is if you try that again later this afternoon, or you try that again tomorrow.
My wife's going to watch this and say, you can remember things.
Yeah, I know. That's right. You better be careful. Yeah. I did that with one of my patients, and he named 4 things that he loved about going to Japan. And then I said, okay, you are going to remember to tell me that in our next session. So the next week I came and I sat down, and he remembered that he needed to tell me. I forgot. So he remembered that he was supposed to tell me. And then he could remember, I think, 3 out of the 4. And so every week, then I added a 5th thing. And so every week now, that is what we do. And he remembers it, and he's stunned because he can't remember anything. So there you go.
Awesome. Well, I think we had a great conversation here. Is there anything else you want to add at the end about baby blooming moments, or anything else you got going on?
I would love to. Thank you so much. So as much as I love, and I do love working with my seniors, and you can find me for seniors if you want to get in touch with me, Michelle Mince, 310-902-5008, or Michelle at taughttotalk.com. It's T like Tom, O, T like Tom, the number 2, TALK.com. Michelle at taughttotalk.com. I know it's a mouthful, but I work with kids. So I work with little tots, little babies. So that's my other piece of my life. You might be grandparents or great grandparents. And so you might have little ones from birth to 5, or know people who do. And that's my other area of specialty. Baby Blooming Moments, babybloomingmoments.com. And I help empower parents or grandparents or nannies to enrich the very critical birth to 5 years. During that time, those are when brain connections are forming that haven't formed yet when babies are born. So I want to get the babies and help them form the brain connections. So while you're diapering or reading, what you can be doing and how you can be doing those activities in ways that enrich language development and help with brain development. So I'm helping the
or
brain
if grandparents wanted to learn stuff for working with their grandkids.
Well, that's what I do. I work
Yeah.
with grandparents. And so I coach virtually or in person. So I work with people all over the world. I have grandparents that love learning from me because they knew what to do and the songs to sing when their kids were growing up. Now I give them an activity of something they can do while they're already diapering and getting better connection with that baby, that they are just so delightful to try these new things. So that's what it's all about. And then you're remembering on memory different things to do. So I help with improving the brain development from birth to 5. And I help with brain stimulation for 70 and above. So Michelle at babybloomingmoments.com. And so I've got a speech therapy hat for the seniors if you want to talk to me that way. And I have a baby blooming moment hat, which I am the early development expert.
Which can also be for seniors if they want to learn how to help teach their grandkids and develop their brains.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. I hope
Thank
you
you
have a
so
great
much.
day.
I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
And I'm going to remember this.
I'm going to hold you to it.
All righty. Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Senior Reset podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please consider sharing with the seniors in your life so they too can live stronger, healthier, and more connected lives. Find all our episodes or submit your questions at signalhg.com/podcast. This podcast is intended for informational use and not as a replacement for medical diagnosis or care. Always consult your doctor if you have a medical issue.